First, thank you very much for having me over here and for the introduction and everything else. And Assalamu alaikum. So my objective today is to get you guys excited about innovation, but also get you excited about how to deal with the future, the rapidly changing world that's happening, and how do you guys actually take advantage, not be fearful of change, but be excited about change and do something about it. So four things. One, why do we need to innovate? I don't think we need to tell Dubai why you need to innovate. You've been innovating for the last many years, but doesn't mean you've got to stop. You've got to keep on going. Talk about how to generate big ideas about what's important, what's relevant tomorrow, and making sure you're choosing the right ones versus the wrong ones. Next thing is how do you make it real? Making it real is the hard part. Idea generation is kind of easy. Lots of people have ideas. It's the hard work of rolling up your sleeves and making it real. That's where the real stuff is. And the last part is what are you going to do Monday morning, right? So there's no point coming to a session and have nothing to do on Monday. So that's the objective. Let me share with you just basically a picture of, I was 4 years old, and my father held my hand. He walked me outside, and some of you were not even born, 1969, 60. And my dad looks at the moon and he says, look up there. And I looked at the moon, and he says, there are people walking on there right now. And this was 1969. It was the first man on the moon story. And as I stood there and looked at my father's face, my father was amazed that somebody was able to put a man on the moon. And as a 4-year-old, to see your father say that was very inspiring. And he says, look at those guys, they can do anything. And it was at that day when I said, I wanted to be one of those change makers too. So change makers is inspiration. At some point in your age, you say, I want to be that. Right? So when's a change maker? And as he told me to look at the moon, it was funny. I remember still at 4 years old looking at the moon, and I swear I saw somebody walking on there. At 4 years old, you can see anything, right? And so I saw the little people walking, and there they were, people walking on the moon. So the question here is, you know, people are change makers. People have been changing things forever. Why can't you be change makers yourself? We need to be change makers too, right? So your inspiration. So here's what we are seeing around the world. Trends are happening. The world is changing rapidly. I used to work at Motorola. You guys remember the StarTech phone? Yeah, so those who are a little older might remember. Motorola was the Apple and the Google and the Facebook, the greatest company on the planet in the 80s and 90s. My team made the lithium-ion batteries which are on your cell phone today. It was my team who made all the patents and all the technology for doing that. And as a result, when my kids ask me what have I done, I show them a phone. And that's my game, is what I've done for them. But the point is, it took about 60 years for Motorola to get destroyed. Eventually, the world changes, and Motorola could not adjust and adapt to the changing world. And then came Nokia, BlackBerry, then eventually Apple, completely changed everything. So in the same way, though, in the last 10, 15 years, things are changing even faster. The pace of change that we are used to has compressed. So what used to take 50 years for a company to disappear, competition to come, countries to come up and go down, it's now happening in a much shorter time. Amazon, in less than 8 years, destroys the book industry, changes it completely. Netflix changes the way we watch movies today. We don't need a television in your hotel room anymore. It's always on your iPad. The world has changed on that. Streaming. Airbnb, there are more hotel rooms in New York than hotels anymore. So Airbnb is making more money than actually hotels. And of course, Uber is changing the game again. And for all these companies, as the change happens, as they destroy the old people, they are fearful of getting destroyed themselves. The change is happening that they too will not be there tomorrow. And this is the world we live in. So in this changing world, we can get scared and say, oh my God, we can't compete, we can't do much with this. Or we can embrace saying maybe we are the change. And if we are the first one to change, then maybe we can make a big difference. So the question is, how do you organize yourself in your thinking for the change that you want to own? In every place, if you don't do anything differently, you might continue growing and eventually you go flat. Eventually things flatten out. Whether it's more people coming as tourists into the country, or whether it's basically revenue growth of some type of other, if you don't change, if you keep on doing what you did yesterday, today, and you do that tomorrow, then eventually you're going to fail. The expectation is always that you got to do more. And that expectation is what drives Dubai even, where you hear statements like we don't want to be second, we want to be first, we want to be two times bigger, 10 times faster. And those expressions drive innovation, right? So wherever you are, you can't be happy. But the problem with that is, of course, there's a gap. And how do you fill that gap with new things? So here's the thing. If you really want to close that gap of what to do next, you have to plant some seeds today, ideas. Those ideas will eventually grow into a tree or a plant. As the tree gets bigger, it will bear fruits. And hopefully, when the fruits are ready, the market will eat them. And that's what you have to do. You have to plant seeds today for things which take time to develop. Eventually, you got to harvest. Now, the problem for all of us is this. How do you know what seeds to plant today for a market in the future? You might plant apples, and the market says, I want oranges. How do you know today what you should plant? Because you might plant something, and it'll be wrong. And it is for that reason, innovation is the hardest thing in the world, because you have to predict what the future looks like. And you have no data. You've got no evidence of what that future looks like, unless you've got a grandmother with a crystal ball, or you can read the hands or something, and maybe that's some way to do it. But most of us do not have a way to predict the future. So the question is, how do you predict the future? Any suggestions? Sorry? I would like to be the Nostradamus, but the reality is none of us is going to get this right. But we have to try and predict the future. And we have to. Yes?
We have to put different scenarios for the future and work for the scenarios. We have to see the future right now.
Yeah, so scenarios. You can imagine a future. So if you watch a movie like Minority Report, this is a movie of science fiction. And they say this is what the world will look like in the future. If you guys watch Black Mirror, have you guys seen that on Netflix? When you watch science fiction, then you might be able to predict the future. When I went to work at Motorola, the first day of my job, they made us go watch Star Trek. The whole team, there were 30 of us, all scientists, engineers. This is, you guys are going to watch Star Trek. Star Trek on your first day of work. We said, what a great job. Right? What a great job to work for. Next day we come back, they say, again, watch again more Star Trek. On Friday, the CEO came to us and he says, what did you see? What did you see? And we said, well, we saw the doors which are opening by themselves. We saw they had this type of things. And like, great, what can we do with that? Now, let me just tell you the story of Motorola. Remember the Star Trek? That opening thing? That was the communicator. In Star Trek, the movie, in order to talk, you had to open this thing. Opening came out of Star Trek. And therefore, the phone's name was Star Trek. The next thing we saw is when you walk up to the door, the doors open automatically and close. Today, you guys are not surprised by that. Back then, how did that door know you were a good guy or a bad guy? How did the door know who to open for? That was the beginning of the RFIDs, radio frequency identification. It didn't exist in 1990, 1992. Then this guy said there's guns. And they called them tasers, lasers back then, right? There was a phaser. And it says, oh, that guy is not a bad guy, put your gun on, stun. This was the first time guns were made which didn't kill people. Guns which would just stun people. It was already imagined in Star Trek. And we had a choice to make it real. And they had other things in there from the big screens, where they would talk to somebody on a big screen and say, message coming from planet Jupiter. And the guy from Jupiter would look kind of strange. And the guy would speak in English. Captain Kirk would speak in English. The guy would speak back. What was that? First video conferencing. That was happening in Star Trek. And the guy spoke in one language. It went from voice to digital to language translation, back into the other language. The guy spoke his own language, comes back to you in your language. All that was imagined. So science fiction is not a bad way to see the future. So if you're not reading science fiction, read science fiction. If you're not watching movies, go watch the movies. That's one way to do it. But the better way to do the future is looking at trends. In order for you to know which seeds to plant today, and to have the patience and persistence to do this kind of things, and to make sure your harvest is big enough, you got to nail question number one, what seeds to plant. And you got to look at the trends. Trends tell you what the world looks like. Trends forecast what the world will look like. In the United States, we have a trend right now. The trend is Hispanics, Hispanic population. What does that mean? The population of Hispanics is increasing in the United States. Therefore, if you're going to open a restaurant in the United States, and you make a restaurant out of, let's say, food from England versus food with rice and beans from South America, which one is a better idea? The trend tells you, make rice and beans. So trends forecast what's going to happen. In 1990, the Japanese were making robots. You might remember those robots. They were little robots, they had faces. These robots would walk around, they would fall down. They were really, really bad robots. Who was making them? Sony, Toyota, and Honda. Why were they making robots in 1990? What did they know about the future? And what they knew, that in Japan there was an aging population. The population was going to get older and older by 2015, and there were no kids over there because the women were not getting married. And because women were not getting married, there would be no children, not so many children. And old people, elder people need love, somebody to take care of them. And they also have zero immigration. To go to Japan, there are no immigrants at all over there. So who's going to take care of those older people? And that was what Toyota and Honda said, we can't make a better car. We got to make robots to take care of older people. And today, those robots are about to come to the world, and there'll be one in every house, and maybe at $50,000, and that'll be the next $1 trillion economy, robots in every house. But they knew that in 1990, about something that's going to happen in 2020. You need to know the trends, right? So there are 4 trends which are really important for me to pay attention to. Just want to kind of seed you with some trends. One is, of course, green. We are going to the place where all our energy is going to come from the sun. The sun is an amazing source of energy, and we'll use solar, we'll use wind to do everything. But along with green will also come the end of plastics. We are about to enter a huge thing where plastics are going to begin to disappear. But on the other side, we'll also see the end of oil because of energy. And we'll see other things where we'll have circular economies. You need to think solutions which are circular. Similarly, Connectivate is here. Connectivate is sensors, computational connectivity. Everything we do is known. If you want to do something, it can be done right now. You want to buy a ticket? You can buy a ticket. If you want to order a book, you can order a book. I'll share a simple story for you guys. I'm teaching in a classroom, MBA students. The lecture is about 10 minutes in. Somebody knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. So I look at the door to say, who's there? And the guy opens the door, and there's a guy with a pizza. So I look at him like, what do you want? It's my classroom. What do you want? The guy doesn't even look at me. He looks at the classroom and says, anybody order a pizza? And one guy puts his hand up. The guy comes, puts the pizza down, he says, thanks, and he walks out. So I walk up to the guy and say, what are you doing? Because this is not how I teach my classroom. What are you doing? He says, I ordered a pizza. I said, but why? He says, I was hungry. I said, but you can wait. He says, I don't understand. I said, why did you order a pizza? And he said, because I can. Because I can. So the way we used to live, the way I teach my classroom is now old-fashioned. I am the dinosaur. There's a new way to learn. Those students have the right to order the pizza. They have the right to look at Wikipedia. Those students will Google questions to ask me to make me look bad. That's where we're going now. The world has changed. Connectivate is here. Anything you want it now. If there's a line, you're going to lose money for it. And on Connectivate, voice is here. Alexa, you guys are familiar with Alexa? Yeah? Alexa, 2 million of them were in houses in the United States right now. 2 million. And Alexa changes everything. I'm arguing with my kids. I'm telling them they're wrong. They say, Papa, wait, let's ask Alexa. Since when did the father get displaced by Alexa? Alexa is the new boss in my house. Things have changed. Connectivate is here, right? The funny story on Alexa was about a couple of years ago, a DJ, a radio DJ, basically says, let's play a joke. He says, I don't know how many houses are listening to this station right now, but he says, Alexa, in 12 houses in the United States, Alexa woke up. And he said, order a dollhouse from Amazon. And 12 houses ordered dollhouses through the radio's voice into the Alexa. And this is a new opportunity for security, of course. Right? So the world changes again. Threats, opportunities, and growth. Change is happening. Health is going to be the biggest thing always. 20% of the GDP of most countries is on health. And the technology on health is increasing, whether it's with medicine, whether it's surgery, hospitals, whether it's real-time maintenance. But 20% of your money, all of your money, is normally spent on health. And we will spend the money because we want to live longer and we want to live better. Right? So that's a big thing over there. And the innovations in health are huge. We are going to increase our lives by 5, 10, 15 years. And in some cases, some people are hypothesizing. You'll see signs in Boston. As you're driving in the traffic, there's a sign which says, your son will live to 100 years. And then it says, and his son might live to 150. So even age is going to extend out much further because of technology. That's even the definition of family changes when you get this kind of changes. We got societal changes happening. My favorite trend is robotics. This is going to change everything. Anything you don't want to do, guess who's going to do it? A robot. Anything inconvenient, the robot will do it for you. And therefore, the question for you guys is, what are we going to be doing? What jobs are left? The future of jobs is a question. In about 2006, I did some work for LG. LG was working on the flat screen TVs, so they make LCD displays, plasma displays. And the factories are really big, and they are very special sort of factories. They cost about $8 billion to build. Really, really big, complicated factories. So when they finish building it, we go to see it. And we're looking inside the factory from the second story, looking down on the glass window. And we're like, we don't see anything. Somebody turned the lights on. And they said, no lights. You know why there were no lights? There's no humans in there. It's all machines. And that was 2006. And those guys are far ahead, which means more and more places, we're going to have more and more robots replacing humans everywhere. So think about how that's going to affect all of us. These are trends. If you can see those trends and look into the future 20 years out, you can see a world of robotics. You can see a world of people living longer. You can see a world where people are basically thinking about recycling renewables. They're thinking about your house and your energy. Everything is going to be thought about. It's a different world. In that world, what are your ideas? You can't be telling me I have an idea right now to solve a problem today. Because your idea to solve a problem today may not be a problem tomorrow.
But the robots might be of danger to the humanity. I mean, if our job is separated and done through robots, what we will say? We'll start fighting with each other. Our wives, the houses, the neighbors.
So the question is correct. You're asking the right question. In a world where jobs are going to go away,
For the benefit of the human, not to destroy their normal lives.
so the objective is not to destroy the normal life, but it will change the normal life. And in that change, you want to be the first ones to say, okay, what's next? So what's happening in the United States is a new industry is growing. The new industry is games, gamification. Video games and the whole gaming industry. Entertainment is big. So people are watching more movies, people are playing more games, more activities. That's going to be a big industry.
Problems usually comes from the United States.
We're sorry about that. We're sorry about that. But this is, again, the world changes and we can slow it down or we can go with the change and be the first for the change. The point over here is be careful. Don't stand against a tsunami. The tsunami is coming. You can say, oh no, it's not coming, it's not coming. Bam, it'll hit you. It's better to get on the tsunami and surf. Yeah, so it's a choice.
Part of the tsunami.
I hope so. So the question for you guys is now, if you know the trends, oops. Can you help me? So if you know the trends of what's happening, technology trends and all this kind of things, the second thing you need to pay attention is demographic changes. Demographic changes are happening too, right? So, thank you. And in demographic changes, I'm using a very US-centric set of slides over here, which is basically, you got changes of demographics. African Americans in the US were very important as a population, but now Hispanics are beginning to be more dominant. That changes a dynamic in terms of how they represent each other. We got globalization happening. Today, everybody speaks English to a large extent. As much as we believe Chinese or Mandarin was going to be the language of the future, sorry, English won. English is our language. The Russian speaks to the Nigerian, to the Indian, to the Chinese in English, right? So English happened. But more than that, the globalization is, if I look at you guys all look the same with the people in Korea or the people in South Africa or the people in some other country. Like, no, we're different. Not true anymore. The phone you use, same phone. The movie you watched recently on Netflix, same movies. The food you eat, same brands. And we're beginning to get globalized to a large extent, that the jokes we make, what we laugh at, are beginning to become similar. So we become global even more faster than we've ever been. And Dubai is certainly the best melting pot of globalization, right? Baby boomers, this is the older people. These guys are a great population to think about because they're going to get older, but nobody wants to leave the planet. And if they're going to leave the planet, which is really the case, as you get to my age, you're thinking about exiting. You're thinking about, what should I do next? And I'm thinking about traveling to Machu Picchu and seeing the pyramids. I'm thinking about making sure my health is good so I can be active. How much money do I have, and how much will I spend on that? So the market depends on the segments. Baby boomers in the United States, just an example, 65 million, with each one of them having $1 million. $65 million is going to be deployed into the economy as these people say, I need to enjoy my life before I leave. And they're going to make decisions on what they're going to do next. Vacations, medicine, physical, new houses, moving to warmer climate, all those things. Millennials, you guys know this millennials. Some of you are millennials. And the millennials have been a great generation because they changed the way we saw everything. And these millennials love experiences. They're not as conservative as the previous generation. And behind that is Gen X. That's my generation, which nobody cares about because we're too small. Right? There's baby boomers and millennials. But in between was us. And we now run the planet by age. But nobody cares about us. But it's a big, significant population, and they're going to spend money in a different way. And then here they are, the centennials. They're coming. This is the kids, your brothers and sisters, the little ones. Those little ones are strange. Very strange. My son comes downstairs to go to school, and my mother has made breakfast for him. A mom wants to feed her kid for breakfast so he can go to school and feed his brain, right? So my wife has done that. The son's eyes are half closed as he walks down the staircase, and then mom says, look, I made you breakfast. He kind of looks at it and says, mom, nah, I'm going to get mine from Dunkin' Donuts. How can a son say that to his mother? But he says it. And I'm like, I look at him and like, really? He says, yeah, I'm meeting my friends, and I just placed my order on the phone. He placed the order on the phone for breakfast. He's a centennial. Now, what is interesting about this story is not that he's a bad kid. I would like to say he's a bad kid, because you don't say no to your mother, right? If your mother makes you something, you must eat it. It's not a bad kid. He is a centennial. And what does a centennial mean? That's his way of working with his friends and his community and everything else. And what has happened is 40 years ago, most of us used to eat our food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the house. We never went out. About 20 years ago, people started doing lunch outside because of work. Now, breakfast has left the room. Breakfast is no longer in your house anymore. Change has come. I'm sorry?
Dinner as well.
Dinner's gone. Dinner is gone. There's no more dinner anymore. The lunch, dinner is out, and breakfast has moved out of your kitchen. And this is the new phenomenon. In your kitchen is breakfast. It changes. All right, so demographic changes, along with the trends going on of technology, bionics, biotechnology, nanotechnology, whatever you want to call it, data science, all of that together with the demographics is where the big ideas are. Because your big idea is not about today. Your big idea has to be about tomorrow. the tomorrow problem, the problem of tomorrow with a solution for tomorrow, not today. Otherwise, it's not called innovation, it's just problem solving for current customers. It's not going to be a breakthrough. So how do you imagine the future? Trends, demographic changes. Put them together and you might be able to see what the world looks like. In that world, what are the problems? Okay? So where do you get your big ideas from? Everybody wants a big idea, right? We all think about it and you think about a big idea. You have heard of the guy who was driving to work? And he said, oh yeah, I was driving to work and I had a big idea. Or I was having breakfast and I took the napkin, I wrote my idea on a napkin. I was taking a shower and my big idea came. You heard of those guys? The geniuses? And they make it seem that ideas are kind of like only for geniuses or only for a few people. But that's not really true. You can come up with ideas which are incredibly different. And the first thing to get big ideas is you got to get smart. You have to get smart, right? And we call that dots. You got to be able to get more dots. If you only have 3 dots, if you connect them, what do you get? Triangle. Not impressive, is it? If you got 4, maybe a square. When you're at 5, it's getting better. 6, 7, 8, now it's more interesting. In Boston, we have a lot of city lights. There's lots of lights in the city at night. So when you look at the sky, you can't see a lot of stars. I tell my son, one day we are walking and I see Orion. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Orion. Orion is this warrior. He stands like this, he's got his arm like that. And it's a beautiful constellation in the night sky. Beautiful. And you can see it. Well, at least I can see it. So I tell my son, look up there, that's Orion. So he looks up, and he's like about 11 years old, and he says, Papa, what are you looking at? I see the moon, I see a star, I see the aeroplane moving. But I don't see it. So I said, the 3 bells, can you not see the 3 bells? No, Papa, what are you looking at? So then I took him to Arizona, which is very much like Dubai in the desert. In the night, no lights, and we are camping. And we look up, and then I get excited, I can see it. I said, Nirvan, look, over there, that's Orion. And Nirvan immediately says, Papa, I see it. And he can see the belt, he can see the legs, he can see the warrior and everything else. Now, why do you think he can see Orion now? Because there are more dots. So if you only have 3 dots in your head, what are you going to come up with? Just a triangle. And the point over here is those with more dots will be able to make more pictures. And this is why all our great-great-grandfathers in all societies around the world, when they look at the night sky, they saw bears, and they saw lions, and they saw dragons, and they saw amazing things. But our kids, the one in Boston anyway, will only see a triangle. Poor guys, right? But the point over here is if you want to get more ideas, better ideas than other people, you need more dots and better dots than other people. Where do you get dots from then? And the way you get dots is you can go to school, you can do research, you can talk to other people, you can travel around the world, you can talk to people that are different than you. You have to talk to people that are different than you. If you talk to 2 people who are the same, what kind of dots do you get? The same. So engineers sitting with engineers, same dots. Engineers with marketing, interesting. Engineering and marketing with a customer, even more interesting. Engineer with a market and a customer from another country, wow, that's different. And so the more dots you get, the more likely the picture you will make is going to be different than somebody else's. So otherwise, your picture will look exactly the same, right? So the question for you guys is, can you go get more dots? Should you get more dots? All right, so let's go get more dots is the first thing. Yeah. You can't get imagination without a starting point of dots. Of course, you'll fill gaps in, but that imagination was fed by previous education, which was always dots. Of course. Now you got dots, and this is the second part of innovation, is you got to connect the dots. If you have 4 dots, what do you get? A square. If I ask you, do it again, but I want it different than the first one. Okay, you can make 2 triangles. Beautiful. It's different than the first one. I say, okay, do it again, but different than the first 2 times. Maybe 4 triangles. Okay, no, don't. Come on, be creative. Now, give me something more. Do it again. 4 lines. A circle. She says circle. Why did she do a circle? Because before that, you guys were all doing straight lines. Why were you doing straight lines? Because you are all educated in the same way at the beginning. So your answers are using the same knowledge. Straight lines. Circle is now breaking the rules. By doing it again and again and again, you begin, at the beginning point is to follow the rules. Then eventually you have to break the rules. And when you break the rules, you come up with something different. And then if I ask you to do it again, when flower, better, do it again. And when you do it again and again, at some point, not only do you just break the rules, now you start making the rules. And when you make the rules, you're coming up with something great. So the thing about innovation is if you want to generate a great idea, the great idea doesn't come the first time you connect the dots. Because if you connect it the first time, it's going to be the same as everybody else's. A boring square. Right? And that's what you all came up with. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it differently. Do it again. And at that point, you'll start breaking some of the rules. And now you might have something different than other people. Not so boring. And then if you do it again and again, you might come up with something which is completely a breakthrough. This is what the architects do. When an architect shows you a beautiful model of his building, what do you see in his office next to the trash can? How many drawings? Drawing 1, drawing 2, 3. And each drawing helped give you some more dots of how to connect, maybe not how to connect, and you get more information. And that iterative process is where you get the eureka. When those guys who are driving the car and say they had an idea in their head, or they took a shower, it's because they've been working on this for a long, long time. And suddenly it falls together perfectly, and they say eureka. Eureka doesn't happen without hard work. So what I would like you to do is the next part of innovation is you got to connect the dots and then say, nope, let's do it again. And then break it, do it again. And do it again until you come up with something really great. If you think you are there, stop for the night, go home and sleep. You'll be surprised your brain will continue working. And suddenly you'll connect again. But don't do what your amygdala tells you to do. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the amygdala. In your body, the brain has 2 parts of a brain. One is called the amygdala, that's the reptilian brain. And there's the cortex, which is our logic of education. Reptilian brain basically makes things, you do things because it's easy. That reptilian brain makes you lazy. It says, if you don't need to do it, don't do it again. Lazy is part of your amygdala. And we want to do things only once, but not do it again, and do it again. You know, when you did your dissertation, how many times did you have to do it again and again? That's part of the learning process to make it better. Okay? So next question for you guys when I stop at this point is, if you want to come up with a big idea, you need to go get more dots. Talk to the taxi driver, talk to anybody, go get more dots. Talk to kids, more dots. Talk to grandpa, more dots. Talk to customers, more dots. Talk to people from other countries, more dots. Get the dots, read. Science fiction, go to conferences, but go get more dots. Second part, you got to connect it. Don't be lazy. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again, and then come up with something which is a wow. And a wow is something you will know. You got it because you won't be able to stop talking about it. I got something. Okay? So let's make it real. How do you take the idea now? You've had a great breakthrough idea. How do you make it real? Right? So here's the challenge. You have a big idea, and you want to actually get the result. If you ask senior people in organizations, what do they think the journey from that side to that side will look like? Definitely a straight line. Most senior executives have forgotten how hard innovation really is. They forget at some point. And so they think the journey is going to look whoop, easy. And you say, look, it's not working. Why not? Go faster. And this is the challenge with innovation. That's not how it's going to be. Right? But the expectation of leadership is straight line. because we want it faster, we want it quicker, we want it cheaper. If you ask managers, people who had project management training, what do you think the journey is going to look like? If you ask project managers. Yeah, exactly. They'll say, we'll do a work plan, there'll be Gantt charts, we'll have milestones, and we'll deliver according to these dates. What do you guys think? Good luck. That's not exactly how it happens, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know how to do some of these things. We're going to learn along the way. We're going to learn, right? But the problem is your leadership needs something to approve your plan. And this is what we end up giving. And then you get pressure from both sides because you committed and you might not be able to deliver. All right, so what do you think the real journey looks like? This is it, guys. This is not fun. It's not easy. It's not simple. But this is the journey. And I want to bring this journey to life for you so you can really appreciate it. Okay? Imagine you are the first team ever to go to South America, and you see the Amazon forest, and Queen Isabella of Spain has said, you must cross the Amazon forest. If you cross it, then we can find a path to the other side. If we can make a path, we can make money. You guys have to go from one side of the Amazon forest to the other side. Nobody else has ever done this before. You're the first team. Problem clear? So you get your backpack, you get your gun, you get your axe, you make your team. You look at the forest. You say, you guys ready? Okay. And you step forward. Bam. And the first thing you see is a river. You go right across the river? No, you try and go up to the river to see where it gets smaller. Because you don't want to go in the widest part, you want to go to the narrowest part. So you walk up, and then maybe you'll cross over the river. You see a mountain. You go straight across the mountain? No, you go around it. Whoops, another mountain behind it. Go around that one, another mountain. Now you go back, you go back, you go back, and you're going to go the other way. And maybe now you find a way to get across the mountain. And then you see a valley.
But this is very extreme case, you know. Not all journeys you cross.
It's a story to capture, to make you to understand it. It may not be as crazy as the Amazon. It may not be as crazy as putting a man on the moon. But innovation is a journey that no person has taken before. So there is no map. There's no road map. So they can't give you a map and say, here's the map, follow this recipe. You have to figure it out yourself for the first time. And you're going to make mistakes. You'll go this way because you have to make a decision. And then you find it's a wrong decision. So then you come back. But you're not dumb for making that decision. You learned. You learned one thing to do something different.
You see this road map, you will be very disappointed, and you say, I will never reach there, and I better remain in the rest.
I understand.
Up and down is sometimes easy, sometimes difficult, but not like this.
So the thing is, you're allowed to. The main message which I'm trying to convey is the innovation journey does not have a roadmap. So you will make wrong turns, and when you make a wrong turn, it's okay. You had to make the decision to find out it was wrong. We call that learning. We don't call that a failure. And that's the main part of the message, is you got to make decisions even if it's wrong decisions. Because then you learn of what not to do. Thomas Edison, when he made the light bulb, he found 999 ways how not to make a light bulb. And on the 1001, he figured it out and says, this is it. Now, 999 is a lot of work. And some of us don't want to do that. But the point is, if we want breakthroughs, we need to develop people to be able to be persistent and to go work till they find a way to do that. Right? So that's the point, is how do we get more people trained to do experiment, iteration, like scientists, like entrepreneurs, and how do we get that into more people? Train more people to do that. And I think you can increase everybody's capacity to do more of this. I want to just make this story clear to you. If I ask you guys to make me a cake, and I give you milk, eggs, flour, some fruits or something, and says, go make a cake. All of you guys, go. There's ovens and everything else. What's the chance that you can make a cake for me? Close to zero. But if I tell you, go to the supermarket, go buy a box, and make me a cake, most of you will make a nice cake. Because on the box, there's a recipe. On the recipe, it just says, if you come over here, go this way. And eventually, as in this journey, the team who goes second, there's a recipe that the first team will give to the second team. Don't go this way, go this way. Don't go this way, go this way. And as a result of it, the journey slowly begins to be a straight line the second time and the third time. But the guys who go first, help them, especially as leaders, help them recognize they're taking risks and they're making mistakes, not because they're dumb, but because they need to learn what not to do.
How to optimize resources throughout?
So this is again training. How do you do the first experiment last? How do you fail fast? How do you do experiments at low cost? And this is training. You don't have to do expensive experiments, but you need to do experiments. You have to. But you learn to do it better, faster, quicker, and cheaper. And that's part of the training also, because we tend to often spend a lot of money too early. And we should actually spend less money at the beginning to test things out, and then we say, now we put money, do what we have to do. Yeah? So there are obstacles along the way. You can plan the obstacles, but I want to make sure, I want to give you some recipe in here to think. In a journey of crossing the Amazon forest, you wouldn't go alone, right? You need somebody who can maybe cross a river, somebody who can climb a mountain. So you make teams. Teams are much more powerful than individuals. And you need to learn to work as teams, as people. And the team can't be made of people who are the same. Teams have to be people who are made of very different. And when we are different, we actually are not good at being friends. When we are similar, engineers hang with engineers, marketeers with marketeers, right? So we have to learn to get together even better. But teams are needed to do what we have to do. So, summarize for you guys, if you want to get a big idea, you have to use trends to see the future. Because you need to imagine the future. In that future, you've got to come up with good ideas of problems and solutions, and the only way to do it is to go get more dots. Those with more dots are going to be able to make better pictures. Those with more dots, then you've got to connect the dots. You've got to be very, very aggressive, very persistent, do it again, do it again, do it again, to come up with something which is wow. And when it's a wow, then it might be worth investing. And then you've got to go on the journey of making it real. And the journey is not a straight line. It's a journey of experimenting and iterating. And in there, you've got to be careful about resource allocation. You've got to be supportive as leaders as people go down this journey. And if you keep on pushing and nudging, in 1962, John F. Kennedy said, put a man on the moon. He's not a scientist, not an engineer. He just says, we've got to put a man on the moon because the Russians are ahead. In 1969, 7 years later, they put a man on the moon. That's an impossible thing to do. But as long as you've put your mind to it, human beings are amazing. We just got to choose, we got to focus, we got to be patient and persistent, and we can solve any problem. We're quite amazing as human beings in doing that. Sorry about that. Okay? How much time do I have? 15 more minutes? Okay. So, any questions on this part of how, ideas about the future, how to come up with great ideas, and how to implement? Any questions so far? Make sense? All right. Yes, go ahead.
I used to think that innovation is human, only human can innovate, can be creative. Now with the new artificial intelligence, do you think machines can innovate as well? Based on knowing the trends, studying the past, big data, analyzing and everything, can machine compete with us in innovation, or it's still a human being?
So, at the end of the day, ideas don't get implemented without people. So that's one part of it. And people are the one who makes financial decisions of investment. And as long as we still are in the position to make investments, we will, of course, slow or speed down the implementation. Big data, artificial intelligence, all that will provide us inputs, more dots, perhaps better dots, to create better solutions. But the decision will still be ours until we give up the decision. Right now, we're not ready to give the decision up. But we will come to a day where incremental innovations will be done by machines for sure. And we are still, the collective power of us as a group, it's phenomenal. The amount of wisdom in this room right now is at least 200, 300 years of experience of all kinds of things. The robots have not seen that yet. Machines have not seen that yet. How I interact with my mother, how you interact with your neighbor. Those are still being learned.
But they are learning fast.
They're getting fast. Yeah. I would embrace the change. I would not resist it, but consider it as an input right now. Yeah? All right, let's see Monday morning. What should you do Monday morning? Sorry, Sunday morning, excuse me. Maybe Monday is a bad day. Sunday is a bad day to get started always, to warm you up, okay? But Sunday morning, thank you. So you guys as leaders, you got to think and act differently. And those who like soccer, this is a soccer analogy. If you look at the soccer players, these are the best soccer players on the planet. What do you see? Their faces, the ball. Their eyes are not looking at the ball, right? So they're playing soccer, the ball is there. But they're doing something. The heads are looking at something. What are they looking for? They're looking for goals. What else? They're looking for competition. Where is the competition? What else? Opportunity to pass to somebody else. And obstacles. So the best soccer players are looking around to create opportunities and avoid issues. Now, why don't they lose the ball in the feet? They're still running full speed. The ball is still following them as they run around. How does the ball stay on the feet? Experience? Talent? Anticipation, control. So this is the point, guys. You have two choices to be a leader. First, the ball on your feet cannot be lost. You're playing soccer, you're running around. If the ball goes away and you're looking around, you're off the team, right? So you got to keep the ball on your feet. And the way you keep the ball on the feet is you have a system. A system is 1, 2, 3, look down, make an adjustment. 1, 2, 3, look down, make an adjustment. 1, 2, 3, look around. 4, adjust. And there's a system. All of you who are in business, by this time you should have a system on how to run your day business. A system that first thing in the morning, I'm going to check about what are the issues, what are the emails, what are the topics I need to worry about, what are the KPIs I should be managing. And once you know that system, you should not be spending the whole day managing your day business. Now you should be spending the rest of the time looking around for what's next and what if and what else. Looking for partners. And that's what makes you a great, great soccer player. And that's what makes you a great leader. A great leader has a system to manage what's going on in the current business and spends a lot of time looking around. The CEO of Sony, every meeting he has with his leadership team, he will ask about how's the business, what are the issues, and then one agenda item called innovation. And he spends half the time on the current business and half the time talking about what's next. Just by putting it in a staff meeting, now it cascades into the organization. What he is saying is a leader must spend at least half his time or her time looking around for what's next and what if. Guys, that's who we want to be. That's what we want to do in business. We want to be the great leaders. A manager, and I want to warn you about managers now. A manager is great in working in your company because they will do things on time and on budget. That's what managers do. Tell me what to do. When is it due? How much money? Now do it. Look at me. I did it on time and budget. Well done. But if you want to be a leader, you got to be a manager on time, on budget, and what's next, and what if, and what else. Now you have a leader. And the choice is yours again, and it's hard to be a leader because leader is all about guessing what to do. Guessing. And sometimes it's wrong. But you're okay because you try so many things that on average, 4 times you fail, but 1 time you succeed, but your succeed is big. Statistically, you're a winner, like in basketball and any other game. All right, second, This is your job as leaders. If you're senior, we tell our people that this is our strategy. And what our strategy is, we must do that and we must not do any other thing. Strategy is doing what we agree upon. Correct? So, there's a sandbox. I'm sure all of you are, some of you are parents. You take your kids to the playground and you put them in that box. And the kids are playing. And one of your kids gets out of the sandbox. Sandbox is what you have to stay in. So what do you do when your kid gets out of the sandbox? You go up to the kid and say, don't do that. And you put the kid back in the sandbox, right? And the kid does it again. What do? You say, don't do that again. And you might talk a little firmly, a little bit more seriously, a little bit more firmly. Get back in the box. And the kid does it one more time. Now what do? So you stop the kid and you might use some hard language, and if nobody's watching, you might even say, don't do that. You shouldn't do that, okay? You might even spank the kids, get back in the box. Now in your company, if somebody does that, somebody who does get out of the sandbox, what do you do to that person? First time, it's not your job. Second time, why are you still doing that? A warning. I can see that. A strict warning. The third time, maybe it's bye-bye, right? And by doing this, what are you doing to your child? You're limiting the child and you're limiting his creativity and his opportunities. This kid over here says, I see the swing and the swing is a great opportunity. Let me go play on the swing. And the kid is curious. The kid is looking for new things to do. And the parent says, no, 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 no. And eventually the kid grows up and gets used to just following the rules. And when you follow the rules, you're not going to come up with anything new. You basically put that person in a good law-abiding, rule-following type of system. Not illegal, but rule-following, right? And then one day, you decide to do innovation and say, let's do innovation in our company. And this kid who kept on coming out has been fired already. He's gone. And now you've got people like him in the box. This boy is now 11 years old. He never left the box. And you ask that boy, hey, go play on the swing. What's he going to say? No. And this is the big problem in all companies, that the time when we need innovation, you've already got rid of all the people who are innovative, and you're left with the people who are risk-averse, and now you're asking them to innovate. They cannot. So your job as senior people is create time and space for people to experiment and get out and try things. If you don't do that, you're going to struggle. Number 3. See these 3 crazy guys? If they came to your company with a resume, I want a job, and they dress the way they dress, and they look the way they do, would you give these guys a job? Yes? No? Most of the companies will say, no way. Right? These are the weirdos. Albert Einstein, boy, he had bad hair. Right? Gandhi, he wore funny clothes. Right? That young man at the bottom, he did things that you don't want your children to do. Right? That's who is that? It's the Beatles, right? So these guys are the ones who change the world. These are the guys who got different dots than all of us. Do you have people like that in your company, in your organization? Do you go get a coffee once a week with them just to listen to them and see what crazy stuff they are saying? Because these crazy people have crazy ideas. And guess what? They changed the world. And they did.
Such people cannot survive and become
I think you're right. Yeah, so I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. But our objective as a group is, can we increase our tolerance for this sort of people? Can we train our people and give them time and space to be a little bit more like this? And therefore, we got creativity and flexibility and all that. So I'm being provocative by going extreme. But I just say, can we do more? Right? Now, these are the Koreans. I love the Koreans because I've worked with them for many years. And Dubai feels that way too to me also in the way you guys act. I made the plan for BJ Koo, who was the CEO of LG, for his flat panel display factory, $8 billion. and it would take 18 months to build it. That was the plan. So we presented to him, and BJ Koo, he's the chairman of the whole company. He looks at it, he looks at me, and he does this. He goes, and there's a sound of the saliva making noise in the back of his mouth. It's a Korean thing. When you hear that, it means nothing good is going to happen now. And he says, Hitendra, really? 18 months? Can you do it faster? So I said, no, we thought about it, we planned everything, we did everything. So he says, go home, take your team, you got 2 more days, come back. And we went away for 2 days, quite confident we couldn't change anything. And then we start thinking, how can we do something different? And we come back and we got a plan to do it in 12 months. Now we are fearful that why did we submit an 18-month plan and now we got a 12-month plan? They should fire us, right? They should fire us for coming up with this new thing. But he forced us to think differently. And therefore we came with an answer, we presented to him. And he looks at it and he goes, again, he does the same thing. I'm like, oh, we're in trouble. He said, I told the board already that we can do it in 8 months. Can you do it in 8 months? Go away. Come back in a couple of days. Tell me if you can do it in 8 months. At that moment, we start thinking differently. We start saying, can we find somebody else who can do it? Can we find partners? And as a result, through partnering, you can compress the time. Instead of us doing it with our team doing everything. And immediately the partnering strategy comes out of there to go faster. This is the word from Korea. It's called Pali Pali. In every place, Samsung, Hyundai, POSCO, you go to the chairman of the company and you say, we can do this in 3 months. And they go, guys, no, Pali Pali. Pali Pali means fast, 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 fast. And all Koreans have been trained to go fast, fast. You see them walking, they walk fast because they know you have to go fast, fast. And the culture has changed because the leaders are driving Pali Pali. Pali Pali. And that Pali Pali culture has got a country which is very small, South Korea, to act as if it's 3 times bigger and 3 times faster. Pali Pali. Innovation is all about speed. I want to make sure you guys understand that. It's not about the right idea, and it's not about implementation. It's implementing fast. Because you want to go faster than other people. Pali Pali. If there's one message you have today, go home and say Pali Pali. And you guys have learned a lot from this conversation. So with that, let me just wrap it up. You guys, as leaders, you need to look around for what else, what if, the soccer players, remember the soccer players. All right? Remember your employees, they work in a sandbox. Job descriptions, they're limited. Give them time and space to do things which is different. Or you'll only have the bad players left afterwards when you want to do innovation. Embrace differences. People who are different, we will give you different ideas. People who are different will look at the problem in a new and different way. Think different people. And last, urgency, Pali Pali. And when you put Pali Pali together, put a man on the moon in 7 years, build me a factory in 8 months, we think differently. We don't like it when we're in the project. It feels painful and stressful. But our creativity goes 3-4 times higher because under that, our brain works faster. And our brain sparks, and we see things. With that, thank you very much, and keep dreaming.